Facebook followers to send in questions in addition to the panel tonight. Here's a couple of them. JJ Trammell, he writes, how will she save U.S. jobs when she cut lots of them at HP? How would she restore an aging infrastructure in the U.S.?
Well, of course, let me address HP. I led HP through a very difficult time, the dot-com bust, post 9/11. Your questioner may remember that it's taken 15 years for the NASDAQ Stock Technology Index to recover from that period. And yet we doubled the size of the company. We grew the growth rate at 4 times. We tripled innovation. But in a difficult time, sometimes difficult decisions are necessary to compete. It's interesting that many of the companies that were our leading competitors at the time no longer exist. I think what we have to realize in the 21st century is that we have to compete for every job. And honestly, we're shooting ourselves in the foot all the time. The complexity of our tax code and our regulatory structure is now destroying more businesses than we are creating in this country, which means we're destroying jobs. Most of the businesses that we're destroying are small and family-owned businesses. That's important because they create 2/3 of the new jobs, employ half the people. We also shoot ourselves in the foot when we have the highest tax rate in the world. We shoot ourselves in the foot when we don't have a competitive education system. We have to compete for every job, and the federal government can do a lot to make competing for those jobs harder, as it is doing now, or easier.
So when you hear somebody, and some other people, Al Scarpa typed in and called you a failed CEO in the tech industry, how do you respond to that?
Well, I didn't fail. The thing about business is they're numbers. So you can't just talk about it. There's a track record. And in my case, the track record is undeniable. We doubled the company to almost $90 billion. We quintupled the growth rates. We tripled innovation to 11 patents a day. We quadrupled cash flow. We went from lagging behind in every product category and every market segment to leading in every product category and every market segment. In other words, we competed and we won. It's also true I was fired in a boardroom brawl that lasted over 2 weeks. And, you know, I know, having led, that you have to challenge the status quo to lead. And when you challenge the status quo, you make enemies, which is why most people don't lead.
George.
Before the end of the month, the Supreme Court might rule that the federal subsidies being distributed under the Affordable Care Act in 37 states are illegal. That afternoon, the president will appear in the Rose Garden with a few of the 8 million people who are suddenly losing their insurance and say the Republicans could fix this with 4 words this afternoon. They won't. What should they do?
So I think we clearly need a stopgap measure, which, as I understand, the Senate and the Congress are getting close to, so that we protect those people who are suddenly in a terrible situation. On the other hand, we need to put forward a long-term solution. We should have done this actually when Hillary Care failed. It was a strategic moment when the party should have seized the advantage and put forward a solution. My own view is this: we ought to let states manage high-risk pools. There are states that have done this quite successfully. New Hampshire was one. The closer you get decisions to those affected by those decisions, the better, which is why devolving decisions out of Washington to the states makes sense. But I also think we need now to try in the health insurance market the one thing we've never tried, which is the free market. We have always had regulated oligopolies. We used to have 50 state regulated oligopolies, a cozy little arrangement between regulators and insurance companies. Now we have one big national regulated oligopoly. Let's try the free market, where people actually have to compete for your business.
So let's talk about your experience. You ran a multinational, multi-million-dollar company, but how is that transferable to running the national government? You're running against folks who've been governors, who've run multi-billion-dollar or million-dollar states. Aren't they more suited to be able to take that skill set than you?
Well, let's talk about what it actually takes to be in the Oval Office. What's the skill set you need? I think you need someone who understands the economy. I do. I think better, honestly, than anyone else running. I started as a secretary. I've been in lots of different business settings. I think you need someone who understands how the world works. I know more world leaders on the stage today than anyone running, with the possible exception of Hillary Clinton, only I didn't do photo ops. I sat this close to Vladimir Putin, or Bibi Netanyahu, or King Abdullah of Jordan, or the Chinese premiers, or African leaders, Latin American leaders, European leaders. I think we need somebody now who understands how bureaucracies work, because our government has become one giant, bloated, unaccountable bureaucracy, and there's certain levers that have to get pulled now. I think we need someone who understands technology. technology. Technology is a very important tool. It's defining our lives in really amazing ways and some very scary ways. And finally, I think we need someone who understands what leadership is, which is not about power and title. It's about unlocking the potential of others, in this case, unlocking the potential of this nation, but who also understands that sometimes leadership requires tough calls in tough times for which you're prepared to stand and be held accountable. So I think I'm very qualified. There are other qualified people as well, but I think I bring a unique set of skills and experiences to the table.
Judge, we're going to start with you after this quick break. Center seat with Carly Fiorina. We'll talk